65%. That's the percentage of all underground utilities in the United States that are privately owned. Power lines feeding parking lot lights, gas lines running to pool heaters, fiber optic cables connecting campus buildings. And here's the part that should stop you cold. The National 811 call before you dig system that every excavator is legally required to use only marks public utilities up to the property line. Everything on the other side of that meter, nobody locates it, nobody maps it. And when a contractor's backhoe clips an unmarked private fiber line, the damage bill starts at $20,000 and climbs fast. That gap between what's required and what's covered is feeding solo operators who gross $200,000 to $400,000 a year with equipment that fits in a single pickup truck. After studying the businesses with the widest gaps between demand and supply, I found 10 that are genuinely unsaturated right now, not theoretically. Structurally unsaturated, meaning demand is growing faster than the supply of people willing and qualified to do the work. Some of these are wide open because the work is uncomfortable. Some because the certifications scare people off. And the last one on this list has such a severe nationwide labor shortage that companies are throwing multi-year contracts at anyone who shows up qualified. My name is John. Let's get into it. Business 10, roof moss and algae removal through soft washing. Here's something most homeowners don't find out until they receive a letter that makes their stomach drop. Insurance companies, including State Farm, Allstate, and Travelers, are now using high-resolution satellite imagery and automated drone flyovers to inspect roofs from above. When they spot black streaks, moss patches, or lichen growth, they flag it as structural neglect and send the homeowner a 30 to 60-day policy cancellation notice. Clean it or lose your coverage. That single trend is creating a business that most people confuse with pressure washing. It's not. And the distinction is the entire moat. The Asphalt Roofing Manufacturers Association and major shingle makers like GAF and Owens Corning explicitly void warranties if a high-pressure washer touches the roof because the blast strips away the protective ceramic granules that make shingles last. Soft washing uses a low-pressure chemical application, typically a 3 to 6% sodium hypochlorite blend with surfactant delivered at under 100 psi through a dedicated diaphragm pump that chemically dissolves the root system of the moss without touching the shingle surface. The startup cost is $2,500 to $10,000 for a soft wash pump and battery setup, chemical tanks, a proportioner manifold, spray guns, chemical-resistant hose, protective equipment, and general liability insurance with a roof and chemical endorsement. A residential roof soft wash charges $600 to $1,500 per home. Cedar shake or steep pitch roofs go for $1,500 to $3,500. An average job takes 1.5 to 2.5 hours for a two-person crew. That's $300 to $450 per hour in revenue. Material cost per roof is under $50. An operator on a pressure washing forum described pulling up to a house with black streaked shingles, spraying a 4% mix from a ladder without even stepping on the roof, rinsing the plants with neutralizer, and walking away with $950 in 90 minutes. The homeowner was relieved because State Farm had threatened to drop their policy. Annual solo operator potential runs $120,000 to $220,000, working 8 to 9 months a year. Now here's the downside, and it's worth taking seriously. You're handling sodium hypochlorite, which will kill expensive landscaping if you don't continuously flood gutters and ground vegetation with bleach neutralizer during every job. There's real ladder and fall risk on every roof. And in northern climates, the working season compresses to April through October. But the reason this business stays wide open is that 90% of beginners buy a $400 pressure washer from Home Depot, destroy their first client's shingles, get an insurance claim filed against them, and wash out of the industry within months. The ones who learn the chemistry, who understand dilution ratios and surfactant buffering, own the market in their area because nobody else survived long enough to compete. Business 9, backflow preventer testing. Under the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act, every municipal water authority in the United States is legally required to maintain a cross-connection control program. In practice, that means every commercial building, every restaurant, every multifamily complex, every property with an irrigation system connected to city water must have its backflow prevention assembly tested annually by a certified tester. If the certified test report isn't submitted within 30 to 60 days, the water department issues fines and can shut off the building's water supply entirely. The backflow prevention market is valued between $440 million and over $1.2 billion globally, and growing at 3.5 to 5.9% annually, according to Strategic Market Research and Future Market Insights. The startup cost is shockingly low, $2,500 to $6,500. That buys you a 40-hour ASSE 5110 certification course, a differential pressure test gauge kit like the Midwest Instrument Model 845, annual NIST traceable gauge calibration, basic hand tools, and general liability insurance. A residential or irrigation backflow test takes 10 to 20 minutes and charges $50 to $120. Commercial RPZ and double-check assemblies charge $150 to $350. A multi-device commercial campus, think strip malls, hospitals, or apartment complexes, pays $1,000 to $3,000 for a single day of testing. But here's what nobody tells you. The real money isn't in the testing. It's in the failures. Approximately 10 to 15% of assemblies fail the annual differential pressure test. When they do, you rebuild the internal rubber check discs and relief valve parts. A rebuild kit costs you $45. You charge $250 to $650 for the repair. Full valve replacements bill $800 to $3,000. One operator on our sweaty startup described getting his certification on a whim, reaching out to 15 property management companies and 10 commercial landscape contractors, and landing 100 backflows on an automatic annual recurring schedule. He charges $85 for commercial irrigation and $175 for RPZ lines. Testing takes 15 minutes. When one fails, he orders a $45 rebuild kit and charges $350. His exact words were, "It is the cleanest, lowest stress money in the trades." Annual gross for a solo operator running 8 to 12 tests per day is $120,000 to $240,000 with net profit margins of 75 to 85%. The downside is real, and you should know it up front. In freezing northern climates, irrigation systems shut down in winter, creating a seasonal lull that can last 3 to 4 months. You'll crawl into muddy subterranean valve boxes with spiders, wasps, and standing water on a regular basis. And there's a growing problem of unethical testers who sign off on reports without actually testing, creating pricing pressure in some markets. But the demand is government mandated. It shows up every single year like clockwork. The water department sends out compliance notices automatically, which is basically free lead generation from the government. And here's the first pattern you'll see repeating across this entire list. The businesses that are hardest to get excited about are the ones with the fewest competitors. Business 8, private fire hydrant flow testing and maintenance. Most people assume the fire department tests all the hydrants in their city. They don't. Municipalities only test hydrants located on public streets. The hydrants sitting in strip mall parking lots, apartment complexes, industrial parks, hospital campuses, and gated HOA communities are legally classified as private hydrants. And under NFPA 25, Chapter 7, private hydrants are required to receive annual visual inspections, annual operational flow tests, and full main flow tests every 5 years. Property insurance underwriters like FM Global, Travelers, and Chubb require certified flow test documentation to maintain commercial coverage and building occupancy permits. The U.S. fire protection inspection and testing industry exceeds $12 billion annually, and private hydrant testing is one of the most overlooked corners of it. Startup costs run $3,500 to $10,000 for a handheld pitot gauge and blade kit, a flow diffuser with dechlorination unit, static pressure caps, hydrant wrenches, flushing hoses, maintenance supplies, and general liability insurance. Per hydrant flow test pricing runs $250 to $500. A retail center or distribution warehouse with 8 hydrants is a $2,000 to $3,500 job that takes 3 to 4 hours. Add hydrant painting and NFPA 291 color coding by GPM capacity at $100 to $200 per hydrant, plus lubrication and packing gland rebuilds at $300 to $750, and full hydrant replacements. Bill $4,000 to $8,500. Let's do the simple math. A 1 to 2 person team servicing 400 to 600 private hydrants annually at an average of $350 each grosses $140,000 to $210,000 on hydrant testing alone before any repair upsells. One operator on a fire protection engineering forum described his approach. He shows up to commercial property managers with a proper diffuser that won't flood their parking lot, conducts the flow test with static, residual, and GPM readings at 20 psi, and hands them a professional PDF report with flow curves within 24 hours. They sign annual recurring contracts on the spot because their insurance auditor requires it. The downside is significant and operational. You're controlling 1,000 plus GPM of pressurized water discharge, which can wash out landscaping, erode asphalt, and flood basements if your diffusers aren't properly anchored. Traffic control may be needed when testing hydrants near commercial access roads, and winter weather restricts operations in northern climates. But the reason this stays unsaturated is that most fire protection companies focus exclusively on indoor sprinkler risers, alarm panels, and backflow assemblies, treating outdoor hydrants as an afterthought or subcontracting them out. And the municipalities that own the fire trucks refuse to touch private property hydrants entirely due to liability. That gap isn't closing, it's widening as more commercial properties are built. And here's the thing about businesses 10 through 8. Every single one of them exists because of a regulation that most people don't even know about. Insurance mandates for roof cleaning, Safe Drinking Water Act requirements for backflow testing, NFPA fire codes for hydrant maintenance. The customer isn't buying your service because they want it, they're buying it because someone with legal authority told them they have to. That changes everything about how you sell, how you price, and how long customers stay. You're not competing on marketing, you're filling a compliance gap, and compliance doesn't have an off-season. Business 7, ADA compliance consulting and physical retrofit installation. Over 8,600 to 11,000 Title III ADA federal lawsuits are filed every year in the United States, with thousands more in state courts, according to Seaforth Shaw. In California, under the Unruh Civil Rights Act, a business faces mandatory statutory damages of $4,000 per violation plus attorney fees. A shopping plaza with 5 non-compliant slopes or door tensions faces $20,000 plus in statutory exposure, typically settling for $15,000 to $50,000, and 65 to 80% of small businesses built before 2010 have at least one clear violation: wrong parking slopes, missing grab bars, checkout counters above 36 inches, or heavy doors. The accessibility compliance market is valued at $1.4 to $2.1 billion and projected to exceed $3.8 billion by 2034. Startup costs are $3,500 to $9,500 for certification courses like CASP or ADA coordinator training. Diagnostic tools like digital inclinometers and force gauges, inspection software, and E&O insurance. An ADA site audit report charges $1,000 to $3,500 per property and takes 3 to 5 hours. Physical retrofits, restriping parking with correct signage at $1,500 to $4,500, concrete curb ramps at $3,000 to $8,500, door closer calibrations at $200 to $3,000, and restroom grab bar upgrades at $2,000 to $6,000. Bill $3,500 to $35,000 plus per property. Under IRS Section 44, small businesses get a 50% tax credit up to $5,000 for ADA expenditures, plus an IRS Section 190 deduction up to $15,000 per year. You show commercial landlords 4 violations that serial litigants target, charge them $500 for the report and $8,000 for retrofits, and explain that tax credits subsidize half their bill. One operator described transitioning from general handyman work to accessibility inspection. Landlords pay immediately because lawsuits cost $30,000 plus in legal fees alone. The downside is that code standards evolve constantly, and you carry liability if a retrofit fails exact tolerances. But the mode is clear. General contractors don't know the legal minutia, and lawyers can't pour concrete or calibrate doors. Offering audit plus fix in one stop solves the entire problem, and almost nobody is doing both. Business 6, radon testing and mitigation. The EPA estimates that 1 in 15 homes in the United States has elevated radon levels at or above 4.0 picocuries per liter. In EPA Zone 1 areas, the upper Midwest, Northeast, Rocky Mountains, and Appalachia, the failure rate climbs to 1 in 3 homes. Radon is the leading cause of lung cancer among non-smokers, causing 21,000 deaths annually according to the EPA. The U.S. radon testing and mitigation market is estimated at $750 million to $1.1 billion, but the real driver is real estate transactions. Over 80% of systems are installed during home inspection contingency periods. When radon exceeds 4.0, lenders or purchase contracts mandate mitigation within a 5 to 10 day closing window. Sellers are price insensitive because they cannot let the sale fall apart. Startup costs run $5,000 to $15,000 for NRPP or NRSP certification, continuous radon monitors, rotary hammers, diamond core bits, and inventory, fans, PVC pipe, manometers. A standard subslab depressurization system installs in 3 to 5 hours and charges $4,100 to $2,800. Material costs are $250 to $450, leaving $900 to $1,800 in net profit per job. A solo technician installing 1 to 2 systems a day nets $180,000 to $300,000 plus annually. Additionally, 48-hour continuous monitor tests charge $150 to $250 in nearly passive income. One operator on our radon noted that partnering with 4 or 5 active realtors kept his phone ringing constantly, averaging $1,850 per ticket with $350 in materials, and finishing by early afternoon. The downside is that dense subslab soils may require adding a second suction point or larger fan at your cost, and drilling 4-inch holes through cured concrete slabs is physically demanding. Over 20 states require strict licensing, but that barrier is the moat. The radioactive gas stigma and licensing hurdles repel handymen, while home sales continue daily. Josh Kaufman writes in the Personal MBA that the best businesses attach themselves to a transaction that's already happening. Radon mitigation doesn't create demand, it intercepts it. The home sale was happening regardless. You're just the person who keeps it from falling apart. That positioning, where the customer needs you more than you need them, is the most powerful place a business can sit. Business 5, smart irrigation auditing and water conservation upgrades. The global smart irrigation market was valued at $2.2 billion in 2024 and is projected to reach $6.88 billion by 2032, growing at over 14% annually, according to Markets and Markets. But the opportunity isn't in selling irrigation systems. It's in auditing and upgrading the millions of dumb systems that are hemorrhaging water and money right now. Across the Southwest and West, municipal water districts are imposing strict drought restrictions, non-functional turf bans, mandatory smart controller requirements, tiered penal water pricing, where excessive use spikes utility bills by 400%. California's model water. Efficient landscape ordinance mandates strict water budgets and weather-based controllers on commercial and residential developments. Nevada's Southern Nevada Water Authority has banned ornamental grass entirely. When a homeowner gets hit with a $600 water bill in July because their spray heads are misaligned and running 40 minutes per zone on a 20-year-old mechanical dial timer, they need someone who can diagnose the problem and fix it. That someone is not a landscaper. 95% of mow and blow landscaping crews don't understand hydraulic head-to-head coverage, match precipitation rates, or how to troubleshoot a 24-volt solenoid circuit. It's not a plumber either. Plumbers charge $200 an hour and refuse to dig in dirt, work with low-voltage multimeters, or adjust sprinkler head arcs. It's a specialist, and there are almost none of them. Startup costs run $4,000 to $14,000 for certified landscape irrigation auditor training through the Irrigation Association, a diagnostic audit kit with catch cans and flow meters, an underground wire and valve locator, hand tools, smart controllers like the Hunter HydroWise or Ratio 3 Pro, and vehicle setup with insurance. A residential catch can audit charges $200 to $500 and takes 1.5 to 2 hours. A full smart controller and head retrofit package, replacing inefficient spray heads with pressure-regulating MP rotators, installing a weather-based Wi-Fi controller with flow monitoring, and adding a rain sensor, bills $1,200 to $3,800. Commercial and HOA water audits and system overhauls run $4,000 to $25,000 plus. Hourly diagnostic rates for wire tracing and valve finding charge $125 to $200. One operator on our irrigation described stopping lawn mowing entirely 4 years ago and going 100% into smart irrigation audits and diagnostics. He comes in with catch cans, proves the distribution uniformity is under 40%, installs a weather-based controller with flow monitoring, converts zones to high-efficiency rotary nozzles, and files the city rebate for the client. He charges $2,400. Parts cost him $600. It takes 5 hours and the customer's water bill drops by 50%. Annual net income potential for a single truck operation runs $90,000 to $180,000. The downside is that the work is wet, muddy, and physical. You're digging in valve boxes, crawling through landscaping, and troubleshooting wiring in the rain. In cold climates with hard freezes, the season compresses dramatically, requiring a pivot to services like backflow testing or landscape lighting installation during winter months. But here's what makes this business almost sell itself. Municipal water districts offer $100 to $500 plus in rebates per smart controller and $3 to $12 per high-efficiency nozzle, effectively subsidizing the customer's upgrade with government money. You sell the solution, the water district helps pay for it, and the customer saves money on their bill every single month afterward. You're the only person in that equation who isn't giving something away. Business 4, asbestos and lead paint abatement. There are approximately 40 million homes in the United States built before 1978 that potentially contain lead-based paint. Under the EPA's renovation, repair, and painting rule, any renovation in those homes that disturbs more than 6 square feet of interior lead paint mandates EPA-certified renovators. In commercial and school buildings constructed before 1990, OSHA Standard 1926.101 requires full asbestos assessment before any demolition can proceed. Non-compliance penalties range from $16,131 to $161,323 per willful violation. That regulatory wall creates a market valued at $483 billion globally for asbestos abatement alone, according to Precedence Research, projected to reach nearly $8 billion by 2033, with lead remediation adding another $2 billion plus in North America. The startup cost is high. $25,000 to $65,000 for state abatement licensing, EPA and AHERA certifications, HEPA negative air machines and vacuums, powered air purifying respirators, containment materials, and pollution liability insurance, which alone can run $6,000 to $15,000. But the revenue matches the barrier. A residential popcorn ceiling or pipe wrap removal bills, $2,500 to $8,000 for a 2 to 3 day job. Full house lead paint abatement charges, $8,000 to $25,000 plus. Commercial and school projects bill $30,000 to $250,000 plus. Certified technicians bill $95 to $175 per hour, with labor costs of $28 to $45, leaving net project margins of 38 to 52%. One contractor on a remediation forum described it perfectly. General contractors hate doing abatement because of the paperwork and liability. When a pipe burst exposes asbestos tape in a basement, or a school needs a boiler room stripped over summer break, they don't negotiate price. They just ask, "Can you be here Monday and clear air monitoring by Friday?" He charged $12,000 for 3 days of work with 3 workers in protective suits and a negative air unit. The downside is visceral. You're working inside sealed Tyvek suits with respirators and negative air pressure. It's hot and claustrophobic. Hazardous waste disposal involves chain of custody documentation and certified facilities. OSHA inspections carry serious penalties. But the reason this market stays wide open is twofold. The regulatory labyrinth repels every contractor who would otherwise undercut you, because they can't legally do the work without your certifications. And the average certified abatement supervisor is over 50. Young tradespeople are chasing solar and EV chargers. The workforce gap is accelerating. Still with me? Good. Because now we enter the part of the list where the ticket sizes get bigger, the moats get deeper, and the barriers get high enough that most people will never climb over them. That's not a warning. That's the whole point. The harder it is to get in, the less competition you face once you're there. Business 3, commercial generator maintenance and load bank testing. There are over 3.5 million commercial standby generators installed across the United States. Hospitals, data centers, telecom towers, water treatment plants, senior care facilities, cold storage warehouses. Every single one of them is required by code to have emergency backup power. And NFPA 1 in 10 requires those generators to be exercised monthly. If the monthly exercise doesn't reach at least 30% of the generator's rated capacity, an annual load bank test is legally mandated, typically 1.5 to 2 hours at 50 to 75% or more of nameplate capacity. Hospitals inspected by the Joint Commission must also perform a 4-hour continuous load test every 36 months. Here's the problem most people outside the trades don't see. Diesel generators that run periodically under light or no-load conditions accumulate unburned fuel and carbon in their exhaust systems, a condition called wet stacking that degrades power capacity and creates fire hazards. The only fix is connecting a portable resistive load bank that forces the generator to produce real power under controlled conditions, while a technician monitors temperatures, oil pressure, and voltage. And the people qualified to do this are vanishingly rare because the job requires understanding both 480-volt three-phase electrical systems, including automatic transfer switches and phase rotation, and heavy-duty industrial diesel engine mechanics. Most electricians won't touch a diesel engine. Most diesel mechanics won't go near 480-volt switchgear. That dual skill gap is why the market stays wide open. Startup costs run $25,000 to $80,000 if you purchase a load bank outright, or under $10,000 if you start by renting one from Sunbelt or United Rentals for $350 to $700 per day and billing the client $2,000. A standard 2-hour NFPA 110 load bank test charges $200 to $2,500 per generator. A 4-hour joint commission test bills $2,500 to $5,000 plus. Annual preventative maintenance contracts covering oil and filter changes, fuel filtration and polishing, coolant flushes, battery resistance testing, and transfer switch inspections run $2,500 to $7,500 per generator per year. One operator on our electricians described the economics simply. You hook your 400 kilowatt trailer load bank to a property's emergency generator, step up the load in increments, 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%, over 2 hours, monitor temperatures with a FLIR thermal camera, and log oil pressure and voltage. You bill $1,800 for the test, plus $400 for oil and fuel lab analysis. A 3-building office park is an $8,000 Saturday. A single technician managing a route of 60 commercial generator service contracts can gross $250,000 to $550,000 annually with 40 to 55% profit margins. The downside is physically real. You're hauling and unspooling heavy 4-0 camlock copper power cables in extreme heat or bitter cold. You're making live connections at 480 volts, which can kill you if you make a mistake. And if an unmaintained generator engine fails catastrophically under full test load, you need ironclad pre-inspection agreements to manage client expectations. But the clients are hospitals, pharmaceutical warehouses, and data centers that face millions in catastrophic losses if backup power fails during a grid outage. They don't negotiate price. They don't comparison shop. They pay premium rates for someone who shows up certified, insured, and on time. Business 2, elevator modernization and independent repair. There are over 1 million operational elevators in the United States. More than half are over 20 years old and need modernization. The global elevator modernization market is valued at $22.2 billion and projected to reach $38 billion by 2035, according to Market Research Future. The North American elevator services market alone is $18.9 billion, and the industry has been controlled for decades by 4 companies: Otis, Schindler, Cone. TK Elevator. They dominate new construction. But here's what building owners are discovering. The big 4 are slow, with response times stretching into weeks. Their invoices are eye-watering. And worst of all, they install proprietary controllers and diagnostic tools designed to lock building owners into permanent service contracts with no alternative. If you don't use their technician, nobody can even read the error codes on your elevator. That monopolistic practice is driving building owners toward independent contractors who install open-source, non-proprietary controllers from companies like SmartRise and Motion Control Engineering, freeing them from OEM monopoly pricing for life. The startup cost is significant: $50,000 to $200,000 plus for specialized diagnostic tooling, a fully outfitted work truck, commercial liability and high-risk bonding at $15,000 to $35,000 per year, and state licensing. And the licensing itself is the moat. Becoming a certified elevator mechanic requires 4 to 5 years of intensive apprenticeship through programs like NEIEP or NAEC. That time investment keeps this market permanently undersupplied. Maintenance contracts pay $350 to $900 per elevator per month on 3 to 5 year recurring terms. A full modernization project bills $75,000 to $250,000 per elevator. Billable hourly rates run $200 to $450 for standard service and $400 to $750 for emergency entrapment calls. A boutique independent shop with 2 to 4 licensed mechanics routinely generates $1.5 million to $4.5 million in annual revenue with 25 to 35% net margins. One case on a commercial real estate forum involved a medical building where the Big 4 OEM quoted 8 weeks and $45,000 to replace a blown controller. An independent contractor retrofitted a non-proprietary SmartRise controller in 10 days for $32,000 and won a 5-year maintenance contract across all 6 of the management group's properties at $4,800 per month. That's $5,600 per year from a single relationship that started with 1 repair. The downside is serious. You're on call 24/7 for entrapment emergencies. The life safety liability is among the highest in any trade. And the 4 to 5 year apprenticeship means you can't start this business next weekend. But once you're in, winning 40 to 50 maintenance contracts covers all overhead, and every modernization project is pure profit. Walker Deibel writes in Buy Then Build that the most overlooked small businesses are the ones that become permanently embedded in other people's workflows. Every business on this list, from backflow testing to elevator maintenance, becomes a fixed cog in someone else's compliance machine. Once you're the certified tester, the licensed mechanic, the person with the gauge or the load bank or the radar, the cost of replacing you is higher than the cost of keeping you. That's not just recurring revenue, that's embedded revenue. And it's the most durable kind of income you can build. And now business 1, the one I mentioned at the very beginning, the one where 65% of the entire market is invisible to the public system that's supposed to handle it. Business 1, private underground utility locating. By federal law, every excavator in the United States must call 811 before digging. But what most people don't understand is that 811 locators only mark public utility lines up to the meter at the property line. Everything past that point is completely ignored. Private electrical feeds to detached garages, gas lines to pool heaters, fiber optic cables between campus buildings, private sewer laterals, fire sprinkler supply mains. An estimated 60 to 65% of all underground utilities in the United States are privately owned. None of them appear in the 811 database. None get marked. And when a fence company trenches through an unmarked private electrical line, the repair costs $5,000 to $15,000. When a directional driller cuts a commercial fiber trunk, the bill starts at $50,000 and the lawsuit follows within the week. The specialized private locating and subsurface utility engineering sector exceeds $3.5 billion and is growing at 6.8% annually. The startup cost is meaningful. $30,000 to $65,000 for a professional electromagnetic pipe and cable locator like the radio detection RD8200, a ground-penetrating radar unit like the GSSI utility scan, sondes for non-conductive conduits, a work truck, marking supplies, and specialized errors and emissions insurance. But the revenue justifies every dollar. Hourly rates run $150 to $300 with a 2-hour minimum. Residential flat rates charge $450 to $900 per site. Commercial day rates run $1,400 to $2,800. SUE utility mapping add-ons bill $3,000 to $10,000 plus per site. A solo private locator typically grosses $200,000 to $400,000 per year, with net profit margins around 60 to 70%. One operator on our utility locator described leaving USIC, a major public 811 contractor, where he was assigned 20 to 30 tickets per day for $22 to $28 an hour. He took out a loan, bought a used locator and GPR unit for $26,000, and started dropping business cards to pool builders, solar installers, directional drillers, and fence companies. He charges a flat $450 minimum for up to 2 hours and does 2 to 3 jobs per day. His words were, "I make more in a month now than I did in 5 months at my old job, and I'm not rushing anymore." The downside is that liability defines this business. If you mark a utility incorrectly and an excavator strikes it, you face significant financial exposure, which is why robust E&O insurance is non-negotiable. GPR effectiveness drops in wet, heavy clay soils. The equipment investment is steep, and interpreting radar reflections requires genuine technical skill. But here's why this is the most unsaturated business on the entire list. The construction industry is in the largest infrastructure build-out in a generation. EV charging stations, solar fields, fiber to the home rollouts, warehouse expansions, data centers. Every one of these projects requires private utilities located before a shovel touches the ground. The 811 technicians are burned out and underpaid. Most don't realize they can charge 10 times their salary doing the same work independently. And the equipment plus interpretation skills create a moat that keeps casual competitors out permanently. This isn't a market where supply is catching up to demand. Demand is running away from supply faster every year. And that's the thread running through every single business on this list. Not one of them is sexy. Not one of them will trend on social media. Not one of them will impress anyone at a dinner party. But every single one shares something that 95% of the businesses people chase online don't have. Structural unsaturation, not "I found a niche before it got crowded." Structural. Meaning the regulations keep creating demand, the certifications keep limiting supply, and the nature of the work itself keeps repelling the people who might otherwise flood in and compete. That's not a temporary gap in the market. That's an economic fortress with a moat that refills itself every year. Morgan Housel writes in Same as Ever that the most enduring businesses aren't built on what's changing. They're built on what stays the same. Roofs will always grow moss. Water systems will always need backflow protection. Buildings will always need elevators that pass inspection. Generators will always need load testing. And there will always be pipes and cables buried underground that someone needs to find before someone else accidentally destroys them. Those aren't trends. Those are permanent fixtures of how civilization works. And the people who build businesses around permanent fixtures don't need to worry about what's trending next quarter. Think about 2 people. A man named Marcus spent 2 years trying to build an online brand. He bought courses on social media marketing, launched an AI automation consulting service, pivoted to dropshipping, then tried building a SaaS product. Each time the market was already saturated before he finished his landing page. He made $40,700 total across 24 months and burned through $9,000 in course fees, ads, and software subscriptions. A woman named Claire, same age, same city, took a 40-hour backflow preventer testing certification course for $900. She bought a differential pressure test gauge kit for $200 and spent 3 weeks driving around to property management companies, introducing herself and leaving her card. Within 6 months, she had 400 annual tests on her recurring schedule. Within 12 months, she'd added private fire hydrant testing to her services and was grossing $14,000 a month working 5-hour days. She doesn't have a website. She doesn't have a logo. She has a certification, a calibrated gauge in the trunk of her car, and a list of buildings that are legally required to call someone exactly like her every single year until the building is demolished. The difference between Marcus and Claire wasn't intelligence or education or starting capital. It was this. Marcus kept searching for a market that wasn't saturated yet. Claire found one that can't be saturated because the regulations keep manufacturing demand and the barriers keep throttling supply. She didn't outrun the competition. She picked a race where barely anyone shows up to the starting line. Thomas Stanley and William Danko found in The Millionaire Next Door that the majority of American millionaires own businesses that would bore most people to tears. The data was published decades ago, and the pattern has not changed. The businesses that nobody wants to talk about at parties are still the businesses funding the retirements that everybody envies. And now you have a list of 10 of them that are structurally wide open. The question isn't which of these 10 businesses sounds the most impressive. The question is which one has a gap in your city right now between what's legally required and who's actually available to do the work. Because that gap is where Unsaturated really lives. Not in the newest app, not in the trendiest niche, in the oldest, most boring, most regulation-driven need that nobody else wants to fill. If this changed how you think about choosing a business, hit that like button. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who need to see it. Subscribe if you want more videos about real businesses that real people are actually building. Tell me in the comments which of these 10 surprised you the most, or which one you're going to look into first. I read every single comment. I'm John, and I'll see you in the next one.